started here. So there we go. All right. So welcome to our webinar. My name is Lori McNeely. I've been supporting Ultriva for more than 5 years now. And joining me is Nandu Gopalan, and he has been with Ultriva from the beginning. If you have any questions, please put them in the question box on your GoToMeeting panel. We'll try to get to all of them throughout the webinar or at the end if we have time at the end. We will be recording this one. Actually, we are already. I've already started the recording. We will have it available on our help site so that you can view it in the future. And there is the site where all of our webinars are located. We do plan on hosting these additional webinars on the third Friday of every month. Our next one is going to be in September on the 20th. We'll be going over user groups, assigning users, cloning users, setting up my routines, and those sort of things. We will be doing all these demos in Ultriva 7.5 and higher. So with this webinar, we hope you gain a better understanding of what information can be added in Ultriva and what Ultriva is doing with that. And we're going to focus on adding our items through the website, so we will not be doing any sort of data load or item sync, only on the website. And we're going to have a few short survey questions for you, and we're going to give you those results. And speaking of that, right now we have our first poll question. We'll go ahead and launch that for you. So please vote. So right now at your plant, how do items get added to your system? Do you have some sort of item sync? Do you manually enter them? Do you use the data load process? Or maybe you're not sure. I see quite a few votes coming in. We'll give it a few more seconds here for people to vote. Okay, ooh, a few more people voting. All right, excellent. I'm going to go ahead and close this one, and we will see how everyone is doing their items. It looks like most people are doing a manual entry in Ultriva, which is good. That's what we're going to be focusing on here today. And a few people aren't sure. All right. So now we have another question for you. I will go ahead and launch this question. So what categories are you using for your items? Do you have only Kanban items? Do you only have forecast? Do you use virtual Kanban or some sort of a combination? I see votes coming in. Give folks a few more seconds here. All right, we'll go ahead and close this, and we will share that. Looks like a few people do have only Kanban, very few people using forecast only, and quite a few using any combination of the above there. All right, thank you for voting there. And now I think we can head on over to the demo portion of this. So we have a few prerequisites that we need to consider before we add an item. And so some of those things that you might want to consider before that is make sure that your suppliers are set up. So to do that, you would go to Admin Suppliers and add that. Make sure you have some supplier users added. Make sure that you have some entities added, whether that be your product line, maybe some commodity codes, and some carrier codes. And so those are just maybe 3 or 4 things that you want to keep in mind before you start adding your items. All right, so I'm going to go and we will go to Admin Item. We will add an item here. So the very first thing when you add an item, you'll see several things that might jump out at you. Some of these boxes have like a little red asterisk here. And what that means, those are required fields. We need to put something in there. Another thing you might see is a little green question mark here. It's a little tool tip. If you hover your mouse over that, you'll see some more information about some of these various things here. So the very first thing is our item number. If you have an ERP system, you might want to use the same number that you're using in your ERP system. And so I will just maybe go ahead and say, we'll just add something, item number 1234. And you just give it a description. You might want to keep the same description that you have in your ERP. And if you have an item revision number, you can add that here. And if you use POs from Ultriva, this revision number could print on your PO.
Okay. So the next column is handling time. The handling times are saved in days. This is typically your internal handling times, plus if there is any inspection time, or the time you receive the parts and to move it to the point of use. The same way when you consume the part and scan it to release the order to the supplier. So those times are together, we put it into handling times. So in most of the other systems, you may have it like an internal handling time. So you have to add the rest of the two, like the time you receive the parts, the time you move it to the point of use. The same way, the time you consume the part, the time you release it to the vendor. So that's the time we club together and call it as a handling time. The next column is the location code. This location code can be added if you are having a dedicated location. So for every part, if you have a dedicated location, you can put that in here so that when the supplier is printing that label will be printed with the dedicated location, and so that it will become easier for the receiving staff to receive the parts and move it to the same location every time they receive it. The next column is ABC code. ABC code in a typical manufacturing can be classified into two ways. One is based on the price of the part, ABC classification. The other one is based on your turns. If the parts are high turners, they will call it as an A, and then low runners can be called as D, or you can, whichever way you call it, you can put that in here. It's just an informative field, so that in the future, if you want to get a particular report or something like that, you can use that as one of the filters. The next one is the price per unit of measure. The price per unit of measure is piece part price. So it depends upon how you are storing it. If it is pounds or yards, you can put that per yard. And if it is each, you can put per piece how much it's going to cost. The next column is categories. As everybody knows, Ultriva supports 3 categories: Kanban parts, forecast parts, and virtual Kanbans. The Kanbans typically based on the actual consumption, and the scanning triggers the replenishment. So that's what we call it as a Kanbans. The next one is forecast. Forecast is purely based on your MRP. So MRP handles your ordering and other things. We pull those orders and publish it to the supplier so that Ultriva can act like a supplier portal. The third one is virtual Kanban. The virtual Kanban is based on the on-hand inventory in your ERP system. If your on-hand inventory is accurate in ERP system, you can use virtual Kanban instead of scanning the Kanban labels. So these are all the 3 different methodologies Ultriva can replenish the parts. So the next one is the reorder point. The reorder point, reorder cards are very, very important. How you are going to calculate the Kanbans. So if it is an open box or empty box, when you open box, you have the goods with you, so it will have one less card. If you have an empty box, you may have one extra card added to the Kanban formula. So it is very, very critical how we want to. Some places, if it is going to be from external supplier, you may use open box because the suppliers will put the label on a carton. When you open it, the label might get turned. So you may not be you may not be able to scan when you keep it as empty box. So that's why most of the places, if it is coming from external supplier, we will recommend them to use it as open box. The empty box is if you are using it internal Kanban, internal loop, you may have only space only for 2 boxes. So if you scan it at open, the material handler may bring in the next box earlier than you consume the first box. So you may not have enough space in the floor to keep 3 boxes. So that's why we recommend empty box internally. So it depends upon your business requirement. You can pick whichever way you want to do that.
Okay, next we have lot number tracking. Raise your hand if you knew that the lot number tracking exists. We have a few people that knew that the lot number tracking exists. So maybe for some of you, this might be new. Okay, so for lot number tracking, you have 3 options. None is the default, or you can have a lot number required at time of shipment for this item. So when the shipper would go to ship the goods to you, they would be required to enter in a lot number at that time. Or if you chose at receive, then whoever's doing the receiving on your end would then be required to enter a lot number for that receipt. For this example, we'll go ahead and leave this as none. Okay. Next, we have the coordinator information. We have the item coordinator, or the buyer is who we would normally put here in the first box. There's also one for a purchase coordinator as well. If you know who the item coordinator is, what their login name is in Ultriva, you can start typing that. Or if you're unsure, you can press the space bar and get a list of all the available names. And these are important because if you have any alerts set up for order released, or maybe a late shipment from the supplier, or a reschedule, then these would be the folks who would in turn get those alerts. And also it's important because these users can then, when they go into a lot of these action screens or material status or something, they can only show their items, so they don't have to look at this great big huge list and pick out their own. They have the option to filter just for their items. Okay.
So the next one is the usage per day. Typically usage per day, when you start a new part, we would like to recommend from your ERP system or your calculation to put it in. Once you have that usage per day in the system, when you start using Ultriva, it will calculate and help you to resize that and modify that usage per day based on your history or your future demand. This usage per day depends upon the ERP system or depends upon the customer. They may call it in a different terms. Somebody may say it as a usage per day. Somebody may call it as an average daily demand or average usage, or whatever it is. The usage per day is daily demand, how much you are going to consume every day on an average. The next one is safety time. The safety times are stored in days, not in pieces. Most of the ERP system, the safety times are stored as pieces. The difference, that is the big difference between Ultriva and the ERP systems. If you keep it in pieces, so that is a static number, so it will never get changed. When you keep it like in days, every time your usage per day is changing, the Ultriva recalculates the safety times based on your usage with the safety times. That's advantage. That's one of the success in calculating the Kanbans using the safety times instead of safety stocks. The next column is the quantity on card. This is another generic term. It depends upon the customer. They call it differently. The Kanban size or lot size or standard lot size, standard packaging size or container size. It depends upon the customer. They call it what we call it as a quantity on card, which means a standard container size. So that is very useful to calculate the Kanban formula. You should make sure that when you are sizing your Kanban, your usage per day multiplied by the total time should not exceed your Kanban size. If it exceeds, you will carry too much of inventory, one, or it is very difficult to resize. So this is a typical recommendation we always make. Anytime you create the quantity on cards, make sure that your usage per day multiplied by all the times, like handling times, safety times, lead times, and transit time put together, multiplied by the usage per day, it should not exceed.
All right. Next, we have the product line or family code and the commodity code. These are just classifications. They're way that you can further group your parts for filtering, so that if you want to analyze a group of parts later on. And then also, additionally, for the product line, you could create your own red, yellow, green rule for a particular grouping of parts. So I already have my product line set up in here, and I'm just going to choose that and choose a commodity code. Okay, next we have the tolerance information. So raise your hand if you know what the tolerance information actually does. Okay, I don't see very many hands. I do see a few. So we definitely need to go through what that is. So what this will do, you have a couple options here. You have a tolerance, a ship quantity tolerance or a receive quantity tolerance, and that will alert your receiver or the shipper if they are shipping outside of a particular tolerance level. So I'm going to put 5 in here. So what this means is if the shipper were to ship within 5 pieces, either above or below my card quantity, if they were to ship within that range, then everything will go smoothly and no alerts. But if they were to, so if they ship between, in this case, 20 or 30, everything will be fine. If they ship 19 pieces or 31 pieces, then they're going to get an alert on the screen as they ship to say, hey, this is outside of the tolerance. Do you really want to ship this many? And there is a checkbox down here that can also be related to this. If we were to check this to force the tolerance, then what that would mean is if they are outside of that limit, so if they do try to ship 19, then it's going to say, hey, you can't do it. You need to go back and change until you're within the particular tolerance. It just prevents them from shipping it altogether. Okay, so that's what this checkbox is. So we'll go up here and we'll catch up here and do a couple of these other checkboxes. So the wait at dock for inspection. So what that is an additional bucket. So after the person receives it, if there's an inspection process that also needs to happen, then at that point you can put the check mark here, and that makes someone inspect it, and then at that point they can either inspect the goods and say, hey, yeah, this is good, and if they approve it, then the card then goes to on hand. If they reject it, then the card goes back to in process for the supplier. Okay, the next one we have is wait for put away. So if you don't really have a dedicated location for a part, you still want to keep track of where that is. So this allows you to scan it so that you know where your parts are. And then we already went over the force tolerance checkbox.
The next one is create temporary card for partial shipment. This is mainly used if you are using forecast items. Typically what it does it is, for an example, if your order quantity is 100 pieces, if the supplier ships only 50, it will automatically create another temporary card for the 50 piece so that the supplier can ship the rest of the things. It is, as it stated, it is a temporary card. When you consume, it's not going to place another order. It will destroy the card. So that is the advantage of temporary card. The other thing what temporary card does it is, if you have set a tolerance, for an example, in this particular case, your tolerance is 5 piece. If the quantity is less than the tolerance, then it will not create another temporary card. So for an example, if it is anything, if the supplier ships 23 pieces, so 2 pieces balance, we don't create another temporary cards because it is within the tolerance. The next one is the consignment. The consignment items, you can use a part in the system as a consigned part. If you check this checkbox, what happens is, in a normal cycle, when you receive the parts, we integrate with your ERP system and send the receipts upon when they receive it in Ultriva. Whereas for a consignment part, if you check this checkbox, we don't send that receipt when you receive the parts. We will send the receipt transaction when you consume that material. So either it can be destroyed, or if it is a Kanban, it can go through the order can go to the supplier, but we will do the receipt upon consumption. So that's why that consignment was set. The next one is, do not include this item for auto resize. So you can exclude this particular part from our auto resizing report. Because sometimes you may have only 2 bins, you don't want to resize that, so you can check that box, so it will not consider you to change anything on that on this particular part.
Okay, so that's about it here on the first tab. Next we'll go and enter our supplier information. And so after obviously your supplier should already be entered here. So you can either start typing your supplier name if you know it, or if you're not sure, you can press the space bar. You'll get a list of all the available suppliers that are in your system. And then you just select it from the list. As you see here, the supplier item number and description came over exactly as it was for your item number and your item description. And then, if need be, your supplier has access and they can change that if they would like.
The next one is minimum order cards. These minimum order cards are similar to in ERP system. You may have to order minimum quantity. For an example, in this particular case, you can have 25 pieces per box, but you need to order minimum 100 pieces. So in that case, what you can do is you can put 4 minimum order cards in the system, and then you have to check the checkbox down in the bottom to wait for the run line. What it means is, every time you consume the order, it will not simply place an order to the supplier. It will hold until this minimum cards are reached. Once it is reached, you have one more option, which is a newly added feature for the buyers to approve that before even the supplier gets those orders. Either if you check the next checkbox, it will wait for the buyer to approve it, or you can uncheck that so that once it reaches the 4th card, it will place order to the supplier.
Okay. Next we have the default carrier, which that was added under admin entities. There was a carrier section and where you can add that. I'm going to choose local carrier. This supplier might be close to our location here. And we're going to do a kind of a multi-sourcing here. So I'm going to say that this supplier is going to get 50% of the orders. Okay, next we have the supplier user. So this is kind of the main supplier contact for this item. And if you press the space bar, it'll give you a list of all the supplier users that are out there. There can only be one supplier user. However, there's something down here for additional contacts. You can have several additional contacts. So, if you wanted to, you could set up 3 additional contacts. And the reason why these are important is similar to your buyer or item coordinator information that we entered on the other screen. It's for alerts. So if you want these people to receive the alert for when a new order is released, if a reschedule takes place, if they have a late shipment, you can make sure that these folks are receiving that by entering their information here. Okay. Next we have the lead time, and that is simply how long it takes your supplier to manufacture the goods. In this case, I'm going to say 3 days. And the transit time is how long it takes to get from their location to you. Since this one's kind of local, I'm going to say half a day here.
So the next one is purchase order information. In the purchase order information, we support blanket order or a discrete order. If a part is considered as a discrete purchase order, you don't need to input any information because the integration is going to pull that discrete order. If it is a blanket purchase order, you can input the blanket purchase order information as well as the blanket PO line number attached to that purchase order for this particular part number to this vendor. And then when you are doing the blanket purchase order, you can also input the blanket quantity. So for an example, if it is 1,000, if the blanket quantity is 1,000, every time you release a card, the system will decrement the quantity. When it reaches to a level, the system can alert the buyer stating that this particular part, the purchase order is reaching that minimum level. So that either you can go and increase your purchase order or you can create a new purchase order and update it into Ultriva. The same way you can also do and put an end date for a particular purchase order. So it can trigger the buyers upon nearer when it is nearer closing to that date. So typically in most of the places, December 31st, they may change it. So you can input that date so the system can alert you.
All right, and we've already gone through these first 2 check boxes. So the next one is item goes through shipping hub. So if your supplier has a consolidator or a consolidated place for their shipments, this is an additional step for the goods to go through. Once they ship them, they would then be prompted, the goods would go to a ship hub, and then they would have to ship them from there. And then once that is shipped, the cars then go to in transit for you to be able to receive them. The next checkbox is wait for PO. So generally, if you're using integration and you don't want the supplier to be able to accept the card until you created the PO, this will keep them from accepting it until we get that PO information back from the ERP. And then after we get that, then they can accept the card. Or it could, you may want to, if you don't use integration, you could set up a manual approval process by checking this box for particular parts. But if you do that, you do have to stay on top of it and make sure that, something's not waiting for the set PO action. Okay. Next, we have the additional information tab. And the next few tabs here are mostly for informational purposes only. Some of these things could be printed on the label if need be. And same here for the unit of measure, mostly for informational purposes here as well. And
there's a question.
Okay.
About the checkbox. If we use the checkbox, if the release card should wait for manual approval, Ultriva will not send a consumption signal. PO release through integration until the card release is approved by the buyer. Is this correct?
Okay. If we
Sure.
use cards away from.
Yeah, if you look in your question panel, you can probably see it.
Okay. Okay, so
So
let
if you go
me,
back to the
okay, so let me go back here. So I assume on this, is this the question here, or mostly for the PO release?
It's the upper one.
Okay,
Check the
so the upper one. So will
Yeah.
this one wait for the integration process?
Can you repeat the question? I think, Greg, can you repeat the question again?
It says, will Ultriva send a consumption signal, PO release signal, through integration? I mean, does it wait for the card to be approved by the buyer before it sends that signal through the integration?
Yes. If you go to the action menu, there is a menu called Run Line Approval. So that using that, the buyer can go and approve that order, waiting for the run line approval.
And it does not send it through integration until they do that? Is that correct?
That.
Or?
Yes. Unless otherwise they approve it, this will not go and get the PO.
Okay.
It will be in between your consumption and release. It will be like a release waiting before you get the PO.
Okay. All right. So these were basic things that could be printed on your label if need be. And I'll just enter in a couple of things here. And next tab we have notes. And I believe, Nandu, you were going to do the notes.
Notes, in the older version we had only one notes. That whatever you are typing it can be printed in the purchase order or in the label if it is an internal Kanbans. For the right now what we have done it is we have split that into two notes. One is for the internal purpose, the other one is for the external purpose. The internal purpose notes will not be printed in the purchase order, but when they, for an example, if you want to inform some kind of a quality information, quality check what they are supposed to do, that can be added into the internal notes, where when they receive the scan, they can see those notes in the scanner. For the external notes, like if it is a hazardous material, they have to get the quality check, or they have to get the quality certification, or something of that sort. They can attach it along with the order when they ship it. That can be added to the external notes. That can be printed in the purchase order when they are printing it from Ultriva. So that's why we have the two different notes. One is for the internal purpose, the other one is for the external purpose.
Okay.
The last one is the custom fields. These custom fields can be, it depends upon the customer. These custom fields vary. In this particular case, sub-inventory is one of the custom fields they want to manage it. In some other cases, you may have it like a shelf life of a product, or in some cases you can put some of the specific information which is needed for your ERP system that can be added in here and maintained in this particular custom fields.
All right. We will go ahead and save this. And from here we have a few options. We can assign an additional supplier, set up cards, add another item. So I was going to set up an additional supplier here because we were going to do a multi-source. So we are mapping a second supplier here. And I won't go through all of these options again, but we'll give this supplier also 50%. This supplier isn't local, so we'll maybe choose UPS as their default carrier here. And again, we'll assign some contacts. We'll put in a lead time transit time. It's a little bit further away. We'll say 3 days here. We'll leave the rest as is, and we'll go ahead and save this. Okay, so now we have our two suppliers. It shows us we've got a 50-50 split here. And now let's go back, and as we can see here for this card, for this item, we have 0 cards right now, so we should probably go in and add some cards. And when you add cards here for the first time, it's going to prompt us for the units on hand. And so I'll say we've got 100 units on hand, and I'll also say that we've got 100 units already on order for the supplier that are going to be due coming up pretty soon. And so we'll go ahead and do next. So this is telling us it's going to do 11 cards. 4 cards will be our on-hand inventory because we put in 100, and 4 cards will be represented for our on order already, and then an additional 3 cards are going to be created and released to match the loop size. Here, so we'll go ahead and do next. So this is for our 100 that's already on order here. So I'll choose who we've ordered them from. I'll put in a PO, and maybe we've got 2 separate purchase orders here. And so maybe these first 2 we've got coming in on the 20th, and maybe these last 2 we've got coming in on the 27th. Okay, and so our new orders to match the loop size, it told us 3 were going to be released to the supplier to match our loop sizes. In order, if you're using integration, in order for these to go through integration, we do need to leave the all of this info blank in order for that to happen. Since we have a particular split already in and defined, we don't necessarily have to pick which supplier. We can let Ultriva choose that. So we can just go ahead and do finish here. And now we have some cards waiting at run line. We did have a run line of 4, and that's only released 3 there. So, all right, that's going to wait until we get our next card released to them.
Yeah, the one point I want to make it in here is if you are having a run line set for a particular order, even though you have a 50-50 split, it will make sure that once it starts ordering for the supplier who has the run line, it will make sure that it fulfills the run line before it orders the place an order for the next vendor. Overall, it will get adjusted, but we don't want to split that so that which may cause a stock out in the facility. So the system has got an intuitive way of handling that. That's the point. That's why even though we released 3 cards, extra cards for the supplier, it didn't split the 3 cards between these 2 suppliers because one has got a run line of 4. So it will wait for that supplier to get all the 4, and then it will split the next 4 to the other vendor.
All right, and I see that we do have another question that we needed to go over here towards the end. And somebody has asked, how do we add the supplier? So we'll quickly go through that. If we click on Admin, Supplier, it shows you who the suppliers are in the system, and you would just simply click the button and just enter, just follow the prompts. You know, it's similar. You got some red stars here where information is required. And then you give the, your supplier name, where they're located, a supplier code or maybe a vendor code, customer code, which label you want the supplier to use, and also which time zone your supplier's in. Time zones are very important here. By default, your weekly holidays are set. If you know the supplier works on Saturday, you can uncheck that either way, and then kind of follow the rest of the prompts. Put in their address. I can't type. Put in their state, their city. And save it. So that's basically how you add your supplier. Next to it, prompt you for your supplier user, and then put in your supplier user's first name, last name, just like setting up, very much like setting up a user for your plant. So I won't go into too much detail on that, but that is basically how you would add your supplier. Okay, at this point, I don't really have anything else other than to say definitely we appreciate your time. We hope you find these webinars useful, and we will be doing some more. We've got the one coming up in September. If you have a particular topic that you're interested in that you think we would make a good webinar topic, please send me an email, give me a call, and let me know. But other than that, I hope the rest of you have a very good day.